What is up, Insaners, and welcome to the first, in fact, not the first, but welcome to the nearest stream of the Game Week 1. It's not a deadline stream, but it's a Q&A stream. Welcome all of you. How are you guys doing? It feels like it's been such a long time, such a huge time since we kind of, last spoke. And we've had kind of these sort of streams where we've spoken at length about what's happening in football, what's happening in FPL, what's happening in a particular game week. Of course, now this time a new season is here. We are back. I think it doesn't even feel a long time since we kind of last finished FPL, and so much has happened. So many transfers have happened, so much news. The World Cup is coming. There are some interesting things that are kind of changing in FPL this season. Of course, we've been doing a lot of preseason content. I'm pretty sure that you guys have also kind of prepared your teams. At least you have some basic thoughts, basic ideas in terms of what you want to do. So we'll discuss all of that. We'll deep dive into each of your teams. If you have multiple drafts, please feel free to shoot that in the comments, in the chat. We'll take them one by one. We'll kind of dismantle your team. Please feel free to dismantle my team here as well, because I'm still not there yet in terms of what I'm going to do for Game Week 1. It's still a couple of things that can change probably before the Game Week 1 deadline, but I think rest is pretty much, quite set. So, of course, please feel free to throw your questions, whatever comments you have. If you're new around here, we do this and we've been doing this for quite some time now. So please make sure that you subscribe to the channel, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are doing a lot of content in general. We have done a few videos on transfers, etc. as well. So if you want to follow that, please feel free to follow us on Instagram as well. And I think of course, it's going to be a long season, and I'm sure you guys are very, very excited. And let's see, let's go ahead and let's start the stream today, and we'll see where we go from there. Just one small announcement or one small kind of note. There are a few things that I want to announce, but probably we'll do that sometime in the middle of the stream. And there are some interesting things that are going to happen this season with us, and I'm sure you'll love to be a part of all that good stuff. So we'll also make those announcements accordingly. Great. Hello to Brian. Hello to you. Welcome to the stream. Hi, Nigel. Always glad to see you guys back on the stream, back on the channel. Welcome. I hope you've have some thoughts, or you've had some time to kind of see your teams, etc. Hey, Shan. Hello to you as well. Love the new graphics. Thank you so much. We've tried to change a few things here and there, try to make things a little bit interesting, a little bit fresh. I really hope you guys like it. New trim, new graphics, making. Yeah, thank you so much for that. Thank you, Nigel. Thanks to you as well. This season is a bit confusing. Yes, it is very confusing for somebody who's coming into FPL for the first time. I think it's gonna be a little bit daunting. I'm not expecting a lot of Again, I might be totally wrong, but I'm not really expecting a lot of game weeks to be rescheduled. We will kind of have those kind of things maybe later on in the season, maybe around January, Feb, where there's the World Cup as well. So there would be some sort of scheduling that would have to be done at that point of time. But I think, especially with the 5 substitution rule coming in as well, I think it's gonna impact FPL a lot. I don't think so. A lot of players who were nailed early on, maybe they are not nailed right now. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, yes, it's gonna be a little bit confusing, but I think once you get a hang of it, once you've made your moves, once a couple of game weeks kind of go ahead, I think things would become a little bit clearer in terms of what's happening, right? Because right now a lot of it is in the air, a lot of confusion, a lot of doubts in terms of price points, etc., right? Because prices have been done in such a way where there are options now that you can go for, and if you don't get the right one, I mean, you'll probably start a little bit slower, but again, it's a long season, right? So just stick around, and then of course we'll do this together. Chelsea move. I mean, yeah. Chelsea's generally struggled, to be very honest, haven't they? I mean, I know a lot has happened between them and Barcelona. I mean, Barcelona has literally kicked their, and it's been a little bit frustrating because, of course, you want good players in the Premier League. Of course, you want good players from an FPL perspective. And I think Chelsea fans, whosoever is in the chat, do let me know what you think about how's your transfer window gone. I think Chelsea's probably going to get, maybe struggle a bit. Let's see. I mean, preseason has been a bit tough for them. They've not really settled on the defense, haven't really made any signings in terms of attack. So I think, yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be a tough one for Chelsea. I mean, Villa has really done some, and for this, that the thing that you're mentioning, they've done some really decent signings, and I mean, there could be a chance that Villa might do well this season. I think we'd still have to wait and watch in terms of what happens because they have options. They have a decent team now. If is it a possibility that Gerrard can take them to the next level? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. Great to have the FPL streams back regularly. Thank you so much, and we will be having them regularly. We'll be having a lot of stuff as well along with it. But yeah, I'm trying to maybe stream a little bit more this season rather than just the deadline stream. So maybe a catch up stream, sometime in midweek or something like that. I mean, it's still in the works. I still haven't really thought about it, but yeah, let's see. Let's see. Gossip one, you've shared your team, and thank you so much for that. Sanchez, Ward. I think, guys, if you are, and I'm kind of stepping away from the team, but if you are looking for a 4 million keeper, I think Ward is a very good option. I think Leicester, would sign somebody instead of Schmeichel as their first choice replacement. But till the time that doesn't happen, I think Ward, if you're just looking for a backup 4 million goalkeeper, I think he could be a really, really good option. Excuse me. So you have Trent Robertson, which I like. Walker, Dallo, Patterson. Among midfielders, you have Salah, Mount, Bowen, Neto, Pereira. Forwards are Kane, Haaland, Kane to Haaland in game week 2, and Jesus. I think it's a good team. I mean, I've seen a lot of teams like this, and of course, my team is a little bit different in terms of I've not gone for I've not gone for Walker because the biggest loss I think for this team would be that it doesn't have Cancelo, and I think there's a lot of debate, a lot of conversation in terms of whether Walker can cover off Cancelo. I mean, yes, there's a huge price difference. Cancelo is 7 million, Walker is 5 million. So there would be a significant difference in terms of the returns that they would be providing, at least from an attacking sense. Of course, when you take Walker, I think you pretty much guarantee that City clean sheet, and I think City's still gonna be a good defense. I mean, if you guys saw the Community Shield, and let me know what you think about what happened in the Community Shield. I think they were a little bit all over the place, especially I really trust Diaz, or I really like him in that defense, but that second centre back pairing, or that second centre back option, which is Nathan Ake right now. I mean, not really convinced at the moment. Of course, a lot could change, and they would probably get a little bit more settled, especially when Laporte comes in. I think it's going to be a bit different as well. But I think Walker is somebody that I would probably have as a second defender. If I'm, let's say, if I'm doubling up on the Man City defense, I think that is where I'll probably get Walker in. I still feel Cancelo is worth the extra 2 million. I mean, if you see all the stats, he's probably in the top two for everything possible, right? If you talk about assists, if you talk about goal involvements, if you talk about FPL points, which ultimately matter, I think not having Cancelo is a slightly risky thing to go for, especially when he has a huge ownership as well. I think the ownership is such that you would probably not want to risk. And I understand the thinking here because you've kind of covered off the Man City defend with Walker, but I still feel it's a bit risky. Salah, Mount are really good options. Even Neto and Pereira. I mean, Pereira, I don't think so. A lot of people are going to play Pereira most weeks. I mean, yes, if there is an easy fixture, if you feel that Fulham probably can score a couple of goals, maybe Pereira can get an assist, maybe a goal as well. Because as far as we know, I think he's going to play in a very attacking role for Fulham, right? So there is assist potential. We know that he has a good shot in him as well, so he can get goals as well. So there are chances that he could do well, but I think Bowen is probably the only one that I'm a little bit skeptical, considering that West Ham don't really have the easiest set of fixtures early on, and you can easily downgrade to somebody maybe not a Man City midfielder. I think a lot of people were trying to go towards a Man City midfielder early on, but I think what we saw in the Community Shield is probably going to happen at least in the early part of the season as well, where we will see a lot of rotation between Foden, Grealish. There is Mahrez, of course, as well, who was probably an option, or at least in my thinking, he was an option, but probably not anymore. Then there's Alvarez as well. We saw how Alvarez played when he came on. So, I mean, there are options. There's going to be some rotation, but maybe you can downgrade a Bowen to somebody like a Saka, for example, considering that you don't even have Martinelli, who I think is a decent option to go for, especially in that 6 million price range. I think Bowen to Saka could be an option that will probably give you 0.5. I don't know if this draft has some money in it or not, but I think probably go towards Cancelo. I mean, I would really, really want, especially if you don't even have a Chelsea defender, which is okay. I think if you don't go with a Chelsea defender, I don't think so. It's the end of the world. I think it should be okay. But I think Cancelo would be a slight, risk here. If you want, you can even downgrade Bowen to, let's say, a Martinelli, for example, and then maybe you'll have enough money to go to a Walker, a Walker to a Cancelo. I still feel that's probably a better pick. Nigel, you've shared your team, and thanks for that. Ramsdale, Trent, Cancelo, James, Trippier, uh, Mins. I mean, is that Mins or just help me out with that name? Salah, Saka, Coutinho, Lingard, Haaland, Ward, Undav, Pereira, Taylor. 1 million in the bank. I think straight off, I mean, Salah, Saka, really good. Coutinho, Lingard are up. I mean, they are up for debate. Coutinho is 7 million. I think Lingard is 6 million, and I think, I mean, I'm okay considering that you don't have Gabriel Jesus. I think it's possible option to maybe ignore Lingard at least in the early. I know he's looked okay. He's looked quite attacking, in fact, and quite good for Forest. But I think, I mean, I think there are better options. I mean, you can probably save a little bit money, go for Neto. I know a lot of people are not. I mean, yes, he's probably one of the most explosive options, at least from an ownership perspective, in that 5.5 million price bracket. But I think there is a reason for that. I mean, it's just not the FPL or Twitter hype. I think I know that Wolves are not that attacking. I mean, they don't really score a lot of goals. That's what we saw last season. Now with the injury to Jimenez, I think there could be some issues in terms of link up play, because we've not really seen. Of course, we've seen the likes of Podence, Neto, etc. playing together as well. But I think that could be a bit tricky. But I think I still feel Neto is probably the better option to go for, and Coutinho as well. I mean, Coutinho is probably a transfer that is waiting to happen in a couple of weeks, because Aston Villa, yes, they start well at least for game week 1 and 2, but then things get a bit tricky for Aston Villa, and I think you'll probably have to make a move. So you're booking a transfer in advance, which might not be the best option. I mean, if you go for somebody like a Neto, for example, if you go for somebody like Martinelli, for example, I mean, I'm not very confident about a Rashford at the moment, but I think there are some options in that price bracket. So I mean, or maybe you possibly downgrade somebody like a Trippier, for example, and then you upgrade a Lingard to excuse me, maybe a different midfield as well. So there are options that you can go for here. I mean, Trent, Cancelo, James, I think it's pretty much template. I think it's safe as well. I think they're good options as well. I'm a little bit skeptical about James, considering the Chelsea has struggled a bit, in terms of his clean sheet potential. But I think James, considering that he plays, or I mean, assuming that he plays on the right, or as a right wing back, I think the attacking returns could be there, right? So, I mean, not very much put off by James. Again, Trippier as well. I mean, Trippier, we know that he's going to be on set pieces. We know that, he has a good free kick. I mean, he's probably after James Ward-Prowse, or maybe even equal to him. I think he's a really good set piece taker. So he can give you returns. Newcastle's defense, considering the signings that they've made, I think it's we are expecting the defense to be a lot more stronger this season. I think Eddie Howe is probably gonna focus a lot more on defense as well. So I think Trippier is a decent move to go for. Just not too sure about Coutinho and Lingard here, because on the bench you have Undav, and I mean, if you're not really playing Undav, who's 5.5 million, I think you can go maybe cheaper, maybe 4.5, and then have some additional money. You can even upgrade, let's say, a Coutinho to maybe another 8 million option. Maybe you can go for somebody like a Mount. If you're okay going for Diaz, and if, let's say, if Darwin Nunes is not, in your play or in your thought, I think going for somebody like a Diaz as well is is a decent shout. I just feel leaving a lot of money, at least initially, when you are starting your FPL season. I'm not very sure that that's the right strategy to go, because unless you're probably switching between Coutinho, Lingard, and Undav, it still doesn't really make sense, because you can get a lot more value, or maybe a lot many options can come into your team, which could increase your attacking output, or increase the overall point scoring output. Dallo plus Ramsdale, or Raya plus Zinchenko, or Trippier, or Dallo plus Ramsdale. I mean, I like Ramsdale definitely much more than I like Raya, because, of course, he's playing for a premium defense. Arsenal is expected to keep, or their defense is, they did struggle in the second half of the season, of last season, but I think they're going to start strong. They have a good defense. I think Saliba is one player that, of course, not from an FPL perspective, but I think a lot of people were really looking forward, especially Arsenal fans out there. I think they were really looking forward to seeing him play, and he's been given opportunity, which he wasn't early on because he was sent on loan for majority seasons. But I think this is probably going to be his season where, he's probably one of the players who's going to shine in that Arsenal defense, and I think that's probably going to make their clean sheet potential a lot higher than it was last year. And just because how Ramsdale keeps, right? I mean, there would be a lot of shots that Arsenal probably would concede, and he will make those saves. So there is save potential there, and I think Ramsdale just looks like a better option. Zinchenko, I'm not also very sure of because Arsenal's, generally what Arsenal does. I mean, some let's say if we're talking about the two Arsenal fullbacks in a back four, they would have one something similar to what United does as well, right? So they would probably have one attacker who's very, or one defender, or one fullback who's very attacking. The other fullback would probably stay back. And in this case, yes, we would probably expect Zinchenko to play in that attacking fullback sort of a role, whereas somebody like a White or a Tomiyasu might just stay back a little bit, might give cover to the defense, and just try to hold their shape and hold the line. But I just feel Zinchenko, I mean, it's a bit risky because whenever Tierney comes, I think there's a chance that there could be some rotation there. There's also a chance Zinchenko might play, in the midfield, out of position as well. So just not sure about Zinchenko just yet. I think if I'm going for an Arsenal defender, or somebody from the Arsenal defense, I think I'll probably stick to Ramsdale. I think he could be a long term decent option to go for. So I think when we talk about the combination, I think Dalot plus Ramsdale looks a lot better. Yes, United, I mean, they were really, really bad last season. I mean, of course, I'm not going to start that rant just yet, but there is a chance that, their defense tightens up, especially with Martinez now in play. I think United's defense is going to be a lot better. I think overall they're going to be a lot better team. There could be some attackers as well that we target. Dallo, as what we've seen in preseason, I mean, he's bombing forward a lot. He's been playing in a very attacking sort of a role. So there are chances that, he could get attacking returns. Clean sheet points could also come. So, I mean, he's not a bad option, to be very honest. I'll probably go with the first combination here. Really settled with my team, Shan. Now Ramsdale, Trent. So Ramsdale, Trent, Cancelo, James, Perisic, Salah, Martinelli, Kulusevski, Bailey, Haaland, and Jesus with zero point 0.5 in the bank. Um, I like the forwards. Both are really good options, safe options, and you probably won't go wrong here. I'm slightly a bit different in terms of thinking because I'm probably booking a transfer in advance here, where I'm having Kane for game week 1. I'm not captaining Kane, of course. I think Salah is going to be my captain. Salah is the most has to be the most captain player. And I think his effective ownership is going to be massive. I mean, I won't be surprised if it's somewhere around 170, 180%. So yes, you could have an argument that probably have Haaland in and just save that transfer. I just feel for game week 1, I just want to see Haaland. If he does well, I mean, he's definitely coming into my team. Mostly, he's also coming into my team for game week 2 against that Bournemouth defense, and I think they're gonna struggle a lot. I really feel Bournemouth are gonna struggle this season to stay in the Premier League, and I think there is a chance that Haaland could really haul massively, and I would not want to miss that. So I like that you've gone for Haaland. There's absolutely no wrong or nothing wrong with that. Just the only concern I have with this team is, I mean, Kulusevski, I understand that you're probably trying to cover off the Tottenham attack, but game week 2, Richarlison's going to be back. We still don't know if Richarlison and Kulusevski are probably going to share minutes. So there could be a chance that, I mean, Richarlison might start, he might play, or he might be more regular than Kulusevski. So you're investing 8 million and investing 8 million in a player who might not have the expected minutes, or who might not have as many minutes as somebody, let's say like a Mount, for example, maybe even a Saka, for example. In fact, Luis Diaz also looks pretty much nailed early on, at least since, or till the time Jota doesn't come into the picture. I think Diaz is also pretty much nailed. So I mean, there are better options than Kulusevski here, I think. If you have Martinelli, maybe you go with Mount, who also could be an. I mean, I know not a lot of people consider Mount as a very explosive pick, but we saw that last season that he was very explosive. He was getting those massive hauls as well. So there are chances that you could probably go with somebody else here. Rest, I think The only thing that I'll probably, have, or maybe a little bit wary about would be that Perisic starting place. I mean, there's a high chance that Perisic maybe doesn't start in game week one. Maybe he comes on in game week two, or maybe he keeps, keeps his place. Maybe starts in game week one and then continues to be in that playing 11. Because with Perisic, we know that what we're gonna get a lot of attacking threat. We're gonna get goals. We're gonna get assists as well. He's gonna get clean sheet points as well whenever Spurs keep clean sheets, and I think Spurs are gonna be strong. They're gonna be a lot better this season defensively. So I mean, that's the only thing that you probably have to look at. If let's say if Perisic doesn't feature for game week one, maybe we have an inkling or we get some idea that he's probably not gonna, maybe he's not fit enough to start the season. Then you probably go with some other option. Maybe, let's say, maybe a Trippier, for example, maybe somebody else. Maybe you can even save some money and go with a 4.5 million option. So that's also a thing. But I think rest looks pretty much settled. Bailey is another one who's very interesting because I think a lot of people have gone for Bailey or they are going for Bailey. A lot of people didn't even know Bailey existed in FPL. I mean, of course, he existed in FPL, but I think a lot of people didn't even consider him last season. He was injured for majority of the season. Whenever he was fit, I mean, he was not really getting any minutes, and there was no sort of momentum going for him. This season in preseason, I mean, he's been on absolute fire. It's been it's been quite a delightful watch. In fact, if you've seen Villa's preseason or maybe highlights, etc., I think even Gerard has pointed out that it's becoming a bit difficult for him to keep Bailey out of the 11. And I genuinely feel, I strongly feel that Bailey's probably going to be in that starting 11. So I think he could be an option that who could really be explosive, who could be somebody who really explodes in that price point, maybe a very high value pick as well. But if at all he fails, I think there should be some contingency plan that you have. And I think it's always good to have some cash for that Bailey move, because let's say if Neto is doing well and you don't have Neto in your team, and if you want to go, Bailey to Neto, so you probably need that 0.5 million in the bank as well. So just keep a note of this, because I think this could be a possibility. But I think Kulusevski and Perisic are the only ones that are probably, I mean, not even Perisic. I think Kulusevski is probably the only one that will probably change in this team. Rest, I think it looks like a very strong team. Mings is a fifth defender. I mean, I would probably not go for Mings, to be very honest. I mean, Aston Villa have tough. I mean, they have a decent start, but then their fixtures get a bit tough. I think I think there is a possibility that you maybe go with a Brighton. We'll just quickly see if you have a Brighton keeper, but if you're not, I think yeah. So there's Ramsdale as your keeper, Nigel. So I think I mean, somebody like a Lewis Dunk as well. I know he was injured for a lot last season, but he's definitely going to start this season. He's 4.5, which is quite surprising for a lot of FPL players, managers, etc. And I think somebody like a Lewis Dunk could be an option as well. So I just feel if I want to have that 4.5 million option, I probably would want to have it for a considerable amount of time. And if I'm playing that option, then I think I'll probably go with somebody like a Dunk. I would have preferred somebody like a Tomiyasu, for example, but at least Tomiyasu in the beginning of the season, I don't think so he's fit. So I think White is gonna play. So if you are, probably, I mean, you already have Ramsey, so you might not, double up on the Arsenal defense. But I think there are some options that you can go for. Maybe a Dunk, for example. Do you prefer James, Neto, Ramsdale, biggest possible five at the back, or 8 million Sanchez, Bailey, and a 4-4-2? So it's James, Neto, Ramsdale, 8 million. Let's say a Mount, maybe a Saka, for example, Sanchez and Bailey. So I like Ramsdale over Sanchez. So we'll go player by player. I like Ramsdale over Sanchez in spite of that additional 0.5 million price. I think James is also. I mean, he could be a lot better, in fact, even than some 8 million options. I mean, there is a chance if Chelsea really can keep those clean sheets. I think he could be a very explosive option. Neto and Bailey. I mean, I prefer Neto over Bailey, to be very honest. I mean, Bailey's still. I mean, yes, he's probably going to start, but he's still a bit of an unknown. I think Neto's probably going to be the talisman for Wolves, considering that, now Jimenez is also out for a long time. And as far as we know, Podence is probably going to play as a false nine with the, Neto playing wide. So I think Neto is probably going to be the better option. He has better fixtures as well. And overall, I think I still prefer, I would still prefer that James, Neto, and Ramsdale combination. I mean, and this is what I'm actually also writing about. So for those of you who don't know, I'm also contributing, or I'm also collaborating with All About FPL, and I'm gonna write weekly blogs for them. So there was this one thing that I know I'm also thinking to kind of write or at least explain in a little bit depth in terms of, do you really need an 8 million midfield? I mean, it's a good thing to have, that you probably have some options. Maybe you can switch between a Saka, Mount. Maybe, I mean, Kulusevski is still somebody that I'm not very sure of, but you have certain options that you can go for. You have Diaz. When you probably have some idea in terms of which city midfielder is probably starting, you have that flexibility of going for that option as well. But it's not an absolute must. Absolutely, I think big at the back is probably going to be the right approach or the right way to start the season. And when you kind of start seeing certain patterns, start seeing certain players doing really well, maybe they are high value options, maybe they're cheaper options that you can go for. I think that is when you make that move. And 8 million mid, I mean, yes, it's okay, but I still feel the option of James, Neto, and Ramsey is still possibly the better option to go for. It also depends on which 8 million midfielder if you're going for. If you're going for a City mid, I mean, they are a bit risky in terms of whether they're going to start or not. But 4 or 5 weeks, maybe 4 or 5 game weeks down the line, I mean, they could become an option. So just see, or just check what 8 million midfielder you're going for, and then probably take that call. Till now, transfer window is a 5, but yeah, I mean, if Cucurella signs for Chelsea, I think that transfer window is probably going to be a lot better. It is quite bad. I mean, I won't sugarcoat it, or I won't put it in any other way, but I think it's really really bad, isn't it, at the moment? And yeah, I mean, they could get better. There are rumors about Fofana as well. Kyle Walker-Peters, Dumfries. I mean, Dumfries I think is also linked to United as well. So I'm not sure what's probably going to happen there. But I think yeah, they definitely need somebody who can play as a wing back. Considering that you might not have Aspilicueta and Alonso, I still feel both of them are not going to leave. I think probably one of them leaves. But yeah, I mean, it's still a tricky transfer window for Chelsea. Trying to get in Jesus, but I mean, see, if you want to play very safe and if you don't want to take any chances, if you feel that you are maybe vulnerable in terms of not having an Arsenal attacker, I think Gabriel Jesus is he's not a must-have, but I think he's still a very popular option. So his ownership is going to be very very high. He's already the highest owned FPL player this season. Maybe that's going to go down. Maybe that's going to go even higher up. We don't know that yet. But I think it depends. I mean, you can probably, let's say if you have somebody, let's say like a Walker, for example, maybe you downgrade them to a cheaper option. Maybe if you have somebody like a Saka, for example, maybe you can get a Martinelli. You can save that 2 million, and you can upgrade, or you can get in Gabriel Jesus. So that's also an option. Let's say if you have maybe somebody like a Sterling, for example, maybe a Darwin Nunes, for example. I mean, you don't probably have to go there. You can probably get in, maybe. I mean, I would not recommend downgrading a Salah, for example, to maybe a Diaz. I think that doesn't really work. A Saka to Martinelli is definitely an option. And that might give you some options. I mean, if you have Trippier, for example, as I mentioned, Trippier can come down to maybe a cheaper option as well. So there are options that you can maybe downgrade. I still don't think that downgrading Cancelo to Walker makes a lot of sense, because you are getting a lot of value for that 2 million, and I think he's definitely going to outscore Walker. Consider, even if Man City doesn't sign, a new defender or a new left back, I think there's still a high chance that Walker still maybe starts for majority of the games. But I still feel there are probably other positions where, I mean, you can compromise on an 8 million midfielder option. You can even downgrade cheaper, go Bailey, maybe go Neto, and then maybe get Gabriel Jesus if you really really want him. So there are some routes that you can go for. Coutinho to Neto, Undav to Jesus. I mean, yeah, that sounds actually good. Coutinho to Neto is getting you a lot of money. Then Undav to Jesus. I mean, considering that Undav probably, I mean, how much Undav is going to play, how much are you going to trust a Brighton striker? Well, right now, we don't know that yet. We believe, or we feel, that Undav is probably going to start games, but I mean, it's still a tricky choice. Plan on keeping Coutinho. Get this feeling. Yeah. I mean, I really hope he does, and if you have him in your team, I really hope he plays well. But personally, I mean, I'm not too sure. Not too sure there. Yeah, could be, but yeah, personally, I'm not very heavy in terms of Coutinho starting. I mean, there are chances, but yeah, let's see. You're glowing after your marriage. Nice haircut. Thank you so much, Shakib, for that lovely comment. Um, I just wanted to cover the Spurs attack in some. I mean, yeah, it makes sense to cover the Spurs attack. But I mean, that could be a transfer very, very soon or very early. I mean, if Kulusevski, stays ahead of Richarlison, there's also a chance that Kulusevski might get subbed off, and Richarlison maybe starts or maybe plays as a impact sub, getting those 20, 25 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, and then, giving maybe FPL points, scoring goals, assists, etc. Because there are chances that, Spurs would do well, at least early on. The fixtures are looking decent. So, yeah, I mean, switching Kulusevski to another 8 million mid is definitely an option. Maybe if you are confident or if you are sure, of course he's definitely going to play game week 1. That's something that we are very confident of because Richarlison is suspended for game week 1. So, and if you feel maybe after game week 2 that maybe he's not starting or maybe he's Richarlison starting, then you just switch him to a different midfielder. Want to keep 8? I mean, it's always good. In fact, I think a lot of people don't really give a lot of importance to this, but I think it's really, really important to have some money in the bank, have some, funds available with you, because if you want to make some changes, I still feel, game week 2, 3, 4, it's still okay to take a few hits, maybe make some transfers here and there, because that is when you can actually, catch up to a lot of people who've probably gone ahead. Maybe you've had a disastrous start to game week 1, and I think having that additional money, having that balance, having that option to do some changes and do some certain things which will probably get back your season, or get your season back on track. I think it's always a very good point. And especially when the price rises are happening, right? So there you could be locked out of certain options, because there would be certain price rises, there would be certain cheaper options who are really going high in prices. They probably have started really well. Now a lot of people are actually moving towards those options. So price rises would play a very important role. And if you're locked out of, if you don't have any funds, if you don't have any money left, I think it could be a bit risky, because you might not be able to get that option or get that particular option who you really, you're looking forward to or who you want in your team. So I think having that flexibility is really important. Just change Neto to Bailey to fit Perisic. Now your team is Edison, Trent, Cancelo, Reece James, Perisic, Nico Williams, Martinelli, Bailey, Salah, Captain, Diaz, Pereira, Haaland. I mean, it's a good team. I personally prefer Robertson over Diaz, but that's again a very personal choice. A lot of people are very heavy on Luis Diaz to do well, and I don't think so. He's probably he's probably a bad option. So I like the team. I mean, I'm personally, again, this is a very personal opinion and a very personal thought. And I understand that why would you go for a keeper like Edison, but I just feel, I mean, Edison for most weeks is gonna be 6 points. Maybe if City win even if City win, by a 1-0, for example, I don't think so. Edison's probably gonna get bonus points unless he really makes a lot of saves, which he doesn't really do very often. So he's gonna be a 6 or a 2 pointer in most scenarios, and I just feel going for somebody like maybe like a Sanchez at 4.5, maybe even somebody like a Ramsdale, for example, considering that you don't have an Arsenal defender, and saving that point 0.5, I think that could also be an option, which could really help you later on as well. I don't think so. There's a lot between somebody like an Edison or a Ramsdale. I still feel Ramsdale is probably better value, considering that he's cheaper as well. I know that probably City is gonna keep more clean sheets, but Edison doesn't really have any upside, to be very honest. Rest of the team looks pretty solid. Jesus ownership is stupid. I mean, yeah, 72%. I mean, it's also because he's playing really well. He started the preseason really well. It's almost like you're getting a premium attacker, a premium forward at an 8 million price option. So I think that price is also very interesting, because not a lot of people have a lot of options in that price bracket. I mean, you have the likes of DCL, Bamford, you have other options as Ings, Watkins, maybe even Jimenez, of course, was an option early on, but now, of course, he's injured. So there, whatever options are there in that price bracket, not a lot of them are really relevant from an FPL perspective. I mean, they could do well at certain point in the season, and we might look at them. But I think in that 8 million price bracket, you have Havertz. 9 million, I think, is Nunes. Jota is injured right now. He's back in training though. So I understand why the ownership is very high, because he's definitely going to start most games. There's a chance that he gets hooked off at 70 75 minutes if maybe Arsenal's leading, maybe if they are cruising in the game. especially considering that they have five substitutions to make now, and maybe somebody like an Enketia, plays as like a super sub, or somebody who comes on and takes on the opposition defense at least at the end of the game. So I understand why it's so high, and I understand that it could be really good as well. But yeah, I mean, if you are really looking to gain anything out of Jesus, I don't think so. It's going to be a lot, because possibly everybody's going to have him, right? So I mean, I really don't think so. His ownership is probably going to peak more than this. I doubt it's going to go to maybe 75%, maybe even 80%. I still feel there'll be a fair few amount. If he blanks in game week one, I think there'll be a lot of people who'll be selling him. And that's just how people play, or, people react, or FPL works. But yeah, you have him, and I mean, yeah, he's looked amazing, and his ownership is, of course, high. But yeah, I still feel, yeah, he's probably going to do well. Kulusevski appeal reduces with Perisic as well. Perisic was third. I mean, yeah, it does reduce his appeal. There are chances that Perisic is probably going to start most games, and even if he doesn't play 90 minutes, there are high chances that he will probably play 60, 65 minutes, maybe 70 minutes. We've seen in preseason, I mean, whatever little preseason he's played, I mean, he's looked very advanced, and we know what we're going to get from Perisic, right? He's going to join in the attack, he's going to join in with Kane and Son, and then probably help them. And I think because of that, there will be a lot of time where probably Kulisevsky is left out of position. Maybe he comes in, maybe he stays wide, and Perez is coming in, and kind of playing with Son and Kane. So that does really appeal, reduce the appeal of Kulisevsky. And I think just because of that as well, another reason of probably not going with a Kulisevsky here. And yeah, I mean, they're all signs that you probably should go for somebody else. But yeah, even if you feel that he's probably going to do well, at the end of the day, you have to back your gut, right? So a lot of people would say a lot of things. 100 people would have 100 different opinions. But if you feel that he's probably going to do well, why not give it a shot? But yeah, I mean, the appeal of Kulusevski looks a little bit less. He's also very less owned. He's a good differential, but yeah, I just feel the better options, especially when you have so many options in that 8 million price bracket. I just feel there are a lot better options out there who you could go for. Thoughts on Walker? Excuse me. I think he's gonna start. He's definitely gonna start early on. In terms of attacking threat, yes, he does attack when City are attacking. He moves forwards. He will make those runs, but his positioning is definitely not anywhere close to what a Cancelo would provide you. Walker also does a lot of sideways passing. He would probably pass in the midfield. He'll probably not cross the ball as often as maybe a Cancelo, for example. And Cancelo takes a lot of shots as well. So there are high chances that Cancelo would I mean, and it's not even a question in my mind. I think there are high chances that Cancelo outscores Walker, especially when we talk about the attacking threat and the attacking output that he can get. And yeah, I mean, he's an okay option if you're going for a second City defender. If you're doubling up on the City defense, I mean, he's still not a bad option to go for because he's 5 million. But yeah, I mean, just keep an eye on him. I think that could be a transfer that you probably would have to make maybe a few game weeks down the line, because there are chances that he might not even start, maybe a little later, right? City right now doesn't really have a lot of options. But yeah, I mean, depends on who they sign and if they sign anyone. If they don't, I think he could still get a lot of minutes. But I just feel he's probably not somebody who probably you would go for when you're only going for a single City defender. I still feel that's Cancelo. If you're doubling up on City, I think Walker is still not a bad option. This was a draft I made, except I went Warren City. I mean, it's okay. You would put Pereira's first sub. I mean, yeah, I think Pereira would be my first sub. There will be some tinkering for sure before the deadline. I think pretty much set in terms of. I think I'm also kind of waiting for that Perisic news. If we get some idea about Perisic, whether he's going to start or not, I think that probably would maybe make me make that move and transfer him out, maybe get somebody else. There's also a draft where I'm thinking of downgrading Saka to Martinelli, having that additional money, maybe going for James instead of Perisic, and then distributing that additional money somewhere else. And I mean, I would not really want to replace Neto. I can think of doing that to Bailey, who's 5 million. But again, if I'm targeting Bailey, or if I'm looking at Bailey, I'll probably have to look at, when I'm looking at other options in that price bracket. I don't see a lot of really good options that you can go for. I mean, there are options that are there, but none of them are very explosive, at least at the moment. You have Lingard, etc., who could be an option later on. Maybe a Podence as well, but yeah, I mean, with Podence as well, I mean, I would want to see a couple of games, his positioning, what he's bringing to the team, how can he get those attacking returns, whether he's consistent enough to start, which I think probably he would be. But I just feel that you know yeah, I mean, there could be a change or two maybe, but yeah, Pereira definitely would be, I think, the first name on the bench. Right now it's Nico Williams, and I think that's going to change. Gabriel instead of Ramsdale. I mean, I yeah, you're right that Gabriel has aerial threat, and he could be a threat from set pieces. He could get those goals from corners. But I mean, yeah, it just feels that it's not. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't happen. Right now, we of course don't know. It also kind of depends on. He will always be a threat from set pieces. That's definitely not in question. But I just feel maybe with a Ramsdale, you get those additional, save points as well, and along with the clean sheet, that could really be good. Considering that he makes those saves, and let's assume that he's getting that clean sheet. I think he's also going to be in bonus points. So unless Arsenal really go berserk in terms of attack, and Gabriel Jesus, Saka, and Martinelli, they really go all out attacking. I just feel I would probably go a bit safer here, and I'll probably get Ramsdale. If you don't want to commit to a 5 million goalkeeper, if you feel that you're probably going to save some money, I still feel maybe look at a different option instead of Gabriel. I mean, if you want to go for a 5 million option, I know not a lot of people are very heavy in terms of the Villa defenders. But if you really want to go for a Villa defender, I think Lucas Dean, I think he could be a really good option. But yeah, I mean, that's also a transfer that you maybe will have to think of changing or removing, at least in a few game weeks, because Villa have some tough fixtures after that. Then you can also go for Trippier as well. I mean, he definitely has a lot more attacking threat than somebody like Gabriel, for example. So there are options. I would not still suggest that you go for an Arsenal defender. If you're going for an Arsenal defense or somebody from the Arsenal defense, I think it has to be Ramsdale. Hope Cancelo City will be better. That, I mean, yeah, that game against Liverpool was actually. I mean, they did concede, of course, they did, but at the same time, it was Liverpool. It was a tough team. It's always a tricky fixture against Liverpool for Man City assets. Same goes for Liverpool as well. I mean, even I know the likes of Salah and Nunes really played well, but yeah, I mean, it was a preseason sort of a game. Of course, it was a preseason game. The fitness levels will be a lot better. It's just gonna improve. I just feel it's gonna improve from a Man City perspective. They're gonna settle into a rhythm, and I think that's gonna continue for a good enough time. And I think that is when we actually see the likes of Cancelo, etc., doing really well, because he did really well last season. I mean, he got 11 assists if I'm not wrong, and I think I'm at least very very confident in terms of Cancelo returning. I missed on bullish on Kulu, but I mean, yeah, if, as I said, right, if you are bullish on him and if you feel that he's going to be a good option, you have options there. So even if you go wrong in terms of that 8 million midfield spot, there are options that you can, maybe change in game week 2, maybe even later. So that's okay. I mean, if you have that additional money, I mean, Bailey to Neto makes a lot more sense, and I'll probably do that. But that will leave you exposed in terms of not having any money in the bank. So if you really want to, if you're okay not having any money in the bank, and if you feel that maybe with a transfer or two you can get those picks, or get whatever picks you are at least having in mind, I think it's okay to maybe just have Bailey. But I personally, if I was you, I would probably do the Bailey to Neto move, and I'll probably think of downgrading somebody or maybe changing somebody when I'm making any transfers. I'm okay even taking a couple of hits early on, because I think that should be okay, at least at the start of the season. What do you think, Podence instead of Neto? I still feel Neto is the more explosive pick. I mean, we've seen whatever little we've seen from Neto last season and this preseason as well. I think he's probably gonna possess a lot more attacking threat. I think there are high chances that somebody like a Podence comes inside. He might play a little bit deeper as well, and somebody like a Neto would probably take advantage of that. So there high chance that somebody like a let's say Pudence might be sort of a playmaker of sorts, where somebody like a Firmino, for example, where he's dropping in deep and he's trying to make plays and trying to play Neto in behind the defense, and that's a high possibility. So I just feel Neto, and considering what he's been doing in preseason as well, right? I mean, he's been in absolute great form, and if I want to go for one option, I will definitely go Neto here. I don't have either Cancelo or Haaland, who are both highly owned. What would be a good place to hide? I mean, yeah, it's gonna be tricky. I mean, if you're going without Cancelo and Haaland, that's already a big call, and a huge commitment to certain players. Maybe you're going for a Chelsea player, maybe somebody else. But yeah, Cancelo, Haaland. I mean, I'm actually more worried about Haaland than Cancelo. Yes, Cancelo is definitely going to do well, but I mean, if Man City concede, if they don't get a clean sheet, let's say if Cancelo's not gotten a specific or a particular attacking output in that game, I think there are still chances that you might just get away with it. But yeah, Haaland against Bournemouth in game week 2 and beyond that, I mean, whatever we saw in the FA Cup Community Shield, FA Community Shield game, I think there were chances. I mean, of course, you all saw what kind of misses he did. So there were really good chances that Haaland had. He's a clinic. I mean, he is a good clinical striker. He generally overperforms his expected numbers, his expected goal involvements, his expected goals, and because he's a good clinical finisher, right? Of course, there were very easy chances that he could have finished, and maybe and that's what Pep also said in his his post match interview, that happens, that's football, and you will end up missing certain chances. But he's very confident, and I'm also very confident. As far as I know of Haaland, I think he's gonna bury those chances, and I mean, he's gonna be a threat. So City probably would take maybe a couple of game weeks, maybe some time to get into that rhythm. And once they are into that rhythm, I think it's gonna be very difficult to not have Haaland in your team, because I think he's gonna go really, really crazy. So yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no hiding if you are not having Haaland and Cancelo, and if they really go crazy, it's gonna be some catching up to do from game week 1. Just my second season this season, and I'm aiming for, I mean, 50K is a good rank. I know a lot of people don't believe in those 10Ks, 50Ks, 100Ks, and all of that stuff, but I think, yeah, I mean, you feel confident that this season, for the start, these, I mean, famous last words. Let's see. I mean, I'm going to probably hold you for that. I'll probably take a screenshot of it and I'll save it with me, and I'll show it to you later if that's not happening. But jokes apart, I think it's. I mean, there are chances that if the template works really well, and if we are going with the template like last season, a lot of people could do really well at the beginning. But if a lot of these template picks don't work, I think that's gonna make things very interesting, because then a lot of people will start panic buying, panic selling, and would try to get in those maybe cheaper players who are doing well. Maybe a Son. I mean, I have hardly seen teams, and his ownership is all still 20%, right? But I've hardly seen teams with Son in it. So I mean, he could be a great template breaker as well. So yeah, let's see. I mean, if you want to go for Planch or Archer, I think. I mean, Planch started games for Palace in the preseason. Archer. I mean, it's difficult for Archer because there are already options out there who probably would be, first choice. You have Watkins, you have Ings as well. But I mean, if I'm going for a particular option, I'll probably go Planch, and I hope I've not murdered that name. Uh, yeah, I mean, there is a chance that he probably gets minutes off Mateta, Edward as well. So if I'm going for one option, I think he's not also very highly owned as well, right? So whenever we're looking at cheaper options, let's say the 4.5 million options, 4 million defenders, and all of that stuff, who probably would be on our bench for most weeks, I don't think so. We should go for players who are highly owned, because then in those kind of cases, when the ownership drops down a lot, I think the high chances that they don't, they probably drop in price, and you probably wouldn't want that from your bench option, because especially when you have a bench player who's not playing, you would not want to lose out value on that particular player, just in case if you want to transfer them out, right? So maybe go for Planch in the beginning. I think. I mean, out of the two, I think he has a higher chance of getting more minutes. But yeah, I mean, Palace doesn't really have. I'm pretty sure you're probably not going to play him for most weeks, but yeah, as a bench option, I think he's okay. Opinions of Bailey to Almiron, great preseason form plus differential. I think both of them are really, really good. Fixtures, when you look at both fixtures, I think both of them have. I mean, Aston Villa has probably slightly better fixtures than Newcastle. Newcastle is the only concern that I have with Newcastle is that game week 3 and game week 5 fixture, but it's just two fixtures, right? Other than that, it's Forest, then they have Brighton, then there's Wolves, Palace, West Ham. So it's not a very easy run. On the other hand, if you look at Villa, it's Bournemouth, Everton, Palace. They're all three decent fixtures. But then from game week 4, you have to kind of make a plan or, maybe go towards a different option. But if you're probably looking to start somebody, I think both options are good. I think Bailey's probably going to be a little more explosive, and I think he's probably a slightly better option than somebody like an Almiron. But yeah, both are good options. If you're going for a very high risk move, high risk differential, I think in that case you go with Almiron. But I think from a fixtures perspective as well, I think at least till game week 4, I'm very confident that I mean, Villa is going to be okay. 3 is Crystal Palace. Game week 3 is Palace. So that's also not going to be that easy. But yeah, I mean, if you are playing this option, I think Bailey's probably going to be a little bit safer and maybe a bit more explosive. Jimenez is injured and Neto has always been shit for now. I mean, yeah, I mean that's happened, but I think even when Jimenez got injured and he, of course, it's not been a long time or a lot of time, but I mean, I don't really disagree with it. But this season again, Wolves have changed slightly. I mean, their structure has not really changed, but the way that they have been playing games, I think it's slightly changed. Jimenez is very important in terms of link up play for Wolves, right? And if you have something like a Neto, you probably would need Jimenez. So yes, there could be a chance that he could fail, but I just feel considering the form that he's been in, of course, a lot of it was with Jimenez, in the team on the pitch. But I mean, yeah, I am not very very concerned about you know uh, Neto maybe missing out on points or missing out, because I mean there are a few options that I can go there as well. Of course, I personally have Neto and Bailey both, so that could be a bit tricky. But I think he's gonna do okay. Even if he doesn't really explode, right? He's not at that price point, which is just probably gonna hurt my team or your team a lot. I mean, there are options. Second, you're not really investing a lot of money. So if you have a better option to play, at least in my team, I probably don't. But yeah, if you have a better option to play, you just bench Neto and play somebody else. James over Robbo, and is Perisic going to be a regular? I mean, he's 35, and I agree. Not a lot of people think that he's gonna play regular minutes. He's definitely gonna get minutes. I mean, how many minutes is still a big question. But I still feel he's probably going to be the number one choice. With the 5 substitution rule, there are high chance that he gets maybe 60, 65 minutes, maybe 70 minutes, and then is substituted. But I think he's going to be at least regular in the Premier League. I think there's a reason Conte has brought him into the club. Yes, he's 35, so he's probably not going to play every game, but we know that his attacking output and his attacking threat is quite high. I mean, he's done that in other leagues as well. So I think, yeah, Perisic is probably not going to give you 90. I mean, he's definitely not going to give you 90 minutes week in, week out, but I still feel he's a decent option. James over Robbo, I don't think so. I think Robertson is playing for a much more settled defense at the moment. I don't think so. Chelsea is as settled as they were, at least in the early parts of last season. James, and the only issue with James, we know how Robertson plays and what position he will be at, right? Especially this season, at least in the Community Shield game, I think it's just a very small sample set yet. But we'll probably get some more idea when we, are a couple of game weeks down the line. But I think Robertson's. We know that he's going to be attacking. We know that he's putting in crosses. We know that he's probably going to be on corners as well. He would be on certain set pieces as well. So there's a lot of points output, or different ways you can get points out of a Robertson, and we know that he's probably going to start every game unless he's really injured or he needs a rest, which has happened last season. But other than that, I think Robertson is a great pick. James, I'm still a little bit worried in terms of how Chelsea's defense is going to turn out to be, because right now it looks that they need at least one, maybe if not more signings in there. So I think, yeah, I think he's probably, if he plays as a right wing back, I think he's still a good option. But if he's playing as right centre back, I think his attacking output. I mean, we know that his attacking output significantly reduces when he's playing, as a centre back. So, and we've seen that he's gotten injuries, he's not had match fitness, and because of that, he's also got reduced minutes. Now we have that five substitution rule as well, so maybe he shares minutes on the pitch. But not that Chelsea really have a lot of options to go for. Yes, if he's playing as a centre back, there could be an option or two for Chelsea, but yeah, I mean, it's gonna be tricky. But yeah, I mean, if price is not an issue, I still feel Robertson is a far superior pick than James. Yeah, I did speak about Almiron. I think, yeah, I mean, no Jimenez. I agree. It could be a bit tricky. It could be an issue. But I think I'll probably personally I would want to give that a shot, give that a chance. Almiron has played really well in preseason. I mean, he's been on fire in preseason, and he's cheaper as well as Savio. You've mentioned he's in good form, and he does rotate nicely with Pereira, considering that you are planning to play Andres Pereira. If of course if that's not a possible, or if that's not in your thinking, then it's absolutely fine. But nevertheless, I mean, I'm still not very convinced because yes, we saw. I mean, we've not really seen a lot of Neto as well last season, so I think it probably won't be a very fair comparison if we say that whenever Jimenez is not there, Neto is going to be really bad. I mean, yes, that is an option, that or maybe that's a possibility, but yeah, I mean, I still feel Wolves could do okay. Personally, I would stick to Neto, considering what I've seen. And yes, the injury has come into play a little bit later in the preseason, but I still feel Neto's probably going to be okay. If not, then I'll probably switch to you know uh, somebody like an Almiron as well. I mean, it becomes a bit tricky because Wolves have good fixtures for a consistent amount of time. I mean, they have Leeds, Fulham, Tottenham, Newcastle, Bournemouth, Southampton. Whereas with Almiron, I'm probably struggling with two fixtures, and I mean, of course, I can play Pereira in those fixtures as well because game week 3 he's playing Brentford, so that could be okay. Game week 5 he's playing Brighton again. Those are not going to be easy fixtures, but yes, I mean, you're definitely not going to play a top team or a top six team, or maybe the champions as well. So there's an option to go for, but personally, I mean, I'm okay with Neto at the moment. Might change before the deadline, but I think right now I'm you know keeping Neto as my favorite pick. Mateta, Edward. No, I mean, I would not go for Mateta or Edward. I think, no, I mean, if you need a two pointer, or maybe somebody who's probably going to play, I think there are better options, or there's some other options to go for. But I just feel, I mean, you would be investing some additional money, which I don't think so is required. I mean, maybe you make that upgrade elsewhere. Maybe you make that upgrade in defense. Maybe to somebody else. I just feel it doesn't really make a lot of sense to invest more than 4.5 million right now, at least, unless you're really going for Kane, Haaland, and Jesus, something like that. I just don't see a sense of spending 5 million, 5.5 million as your third forward or in your third forward. So I think maybe invest that money elsewhere rather than putting in that forward place. The Community Shield made me think about going to Kane. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people knee jerked with Kane. I didn't knee jerk with Kane. I still believe Kane has a better fixture than Haaland in game week 1. Of course, that's not to say that Haaland can't score, a couple of goals against West Ham. I mean, West Ham looked really strong last season defensively. Yes, they did have Europe last season. So that did kind of contribute to them struggling a little bit in the Premier League, maybe struggling in defense as well, tired legs, exhaustion from those all those European games. But I generally believe that West Ham are a good team, and Man City are probably not gonna have it very easy, right? And I think Haaland will get chances. I mean, I'm not denying the fact that Haaland is not gonna get chances. I just feel Kane has a better fixture, and I'm okay making that move from Kane to Haaland in game week 2, which I think mostly, unless there's some injury or there is some news that Haaland's probably not starting in game week 2, I feel that that's gonna happen. We'll take up the next one. Rodrigo from Leeds is a good option. I mean, yeah, he's a good option as he is a good option, and he's looked quite good. The only worry, I mean, I'm not really worried from an attacking threat or from an attacking output perspective. The only worry is that whether he's gonna get regular minutes or not. Who from that Leeds team really shines out in attack? Because we know that Leeds are still an attacking team, right? In spite of Jesse Marsh slightly focusing, I mean, he's not definitely focusing completely on defense. I just feel he's gonna be a little bit stronger in defense than what Bielsa was doing. But we still need to see who's that one person. Whether Harrison's probably gonna get those minutes, whether there's somebody else who's probably comes in and take those minutes off Rodrigo. Right now, it's not looking like a possibility, but I mean there is a chance that that could happen. But yeah, I mean, right now, if I'm going for 6 million, I feel if you don't have the likes of Jesus and Saka in your team, I think at 6 million, Martinelli is a way better option to go for, and I would definitely choose him over somebody like a Rodrigo, for example. It's essential to have triple Liverpool, City, Arsenal. I mean, I don't think so. It's essential, to be very honest. It depends on what options as well you're going for, right? I personally don't think so. It's essential to have three City players in the beginning. I mean, I know a lot of people would be going for somebody like a Cancelo. I mean, I've seen a lot of teams who have Edison, Cancelo, and Haaland as well. I've seen teams where people have Cancelo, maybe a Grealish, one of Grealish, Mahrez, and Foden, and then a Haaland as well. So there, I mean, I personally don't agree that it's essential. I think there are good options that you can choose from other teams as well. I think you can double. I mean, I'm not really saying to double up on the Chelsea defense, but I think you could go for a Chelsea defender. Maybe you stick with a defender from, let's say, Newcastle, maybe a Trippier. Maybe a lot of people I've seen they're going for somebody like Aston Villa and the likes of Cash and Lucas Dean. So I think it's not necessary. I mean, it's okay to have those options, but yeah, I mean, as Nick Nack said that it's putting a lot of eggs in one basket, which I kind of agree. But and I'm okay to wait for that, especially and I'm okay having those three Liverpool players. I'm probably even okay having those three Arsenal players because I know not a lot of people maybe would go for Ramsdale, but I have gone for Ramsdale here, and I have Ramsdale, Saka, and Jesus. I mean, Saka could probably become Martinelli before the deadline, but I probably would end up with three Arsenal players anyway, and I have three Liverpool players. I'm okay with those two options or those two choices. I'm just not too sure about three City players right now because I probably would want to see what's happening with those City mids. I believe that Foden played really well in that Community Shield game, and he's probably going to get more minutes. We've seen that Grealish has played most of the preseason, so he's probably going to start. So maybe one of them start on the left, the other one starts on the right. We've seen Mahrez traditionally starts on the right, but I mean he's not really looked that great from any aspect, right? So I was kind of thinking about Mahrez a little bit early. In fact, last week I was dead set on starting the season with an 8 million midfielder, having Mahrez in my team. I'm not too sure about that right now because there are high chances that those City mids might not last the whole game. I mean, there are high chances that that would happen. And who's playing, who's starting, who's getting substituted, maybe around the 60-minute mark. I think I'm okay giving myself a couple of games and then understanding, the patterns there and then probably taking that call. So yeah, not essential, but yeah, I mean, it's a good to have, but not essential. Saka, Rashford, Raya, or Mount, Martinelli, Ramsdale. I'm not very, very confident about Rashford here, to be very honest. So I'll probably go Mount, Martinelli, Ramsdale. Ramsdale is a good defensive cover for the Arsenal defense. Martinelli is also a good option, and I think Mount. I know not a lot of people are talking about Mount. He's still kind of going under the radar, but I think the fixtures are okay for Chelsea attackers, and I think I mean not really against that Mount pick. I think he's going to be a good differential, and if he explodes, starts very nicely, I think he's going to give you some points. Game week 1 Everton is looking like a good fixture. Then they have Tottenham, which again, I mean, there's nothing to say that Mount cannot, score against Tottenham or get an attacking returns against Tottenham. Leeds, Leicester, Southampton, West Ham, Fulham. So it's kind of mixed in terms of the fixture difficulty, where they have a couple of tricky fixtures in Tottenham, Leicester, maybe even West Ham. But I still feel there is enough attacking potential in those green fixtures that are there, and I think Mount is going to be a good pick. So I'll probably go In fact, I'll definitely go Mount, Martinelli, and Rams. It looks like a more solid combination. I'm very being a United fan. I'm still not very sure about what Rashford or what his output's gonna be. Once we see that, it really depends on if Sancho is fit to play. If Ronaldo is not leaving finally, I mean I don't know what's happening there, but let's assume that if Ronaldo is not leaving, maybe Martial's gonna compete with Rashford for that one spot. Sancho looks pretty much nailed there. So still not sure about what's going to happen. I think it's okay to, if we get some idea before the deadline that Rashford is definitely somebody to start. I mean, it would still enter my thinking, but I'm still not very sure about you know still not very sure about going for Rashford. Prudence over Neto now that Jimenez is injured. I mean, could be a possibility. I know a lot of you are talking about it. I'm still keeping Neto for now. I mean, Neto's still gonna. I still feel Neto's gonna be the more attacking player. Prudence is probably gonna play as a false nine. I think he will play as a false nine. And I mean, if I'm going for one option, I'll definitely go with Neto. Whether I'm going with Neto or not, we'll see. Robertson, Trent, and Cancelo are no brainer. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I still feel. I mean, Trent, Cancelo, no brainers, of course, with that high ownership as well. I think Robertson's also, for me at least, I think Robertson is a way better option, at least in the early set of games as compared to Diaz. That's not saying that Diaz is a bad option. I just feel Robertson is slightly better because he's getting those clean sheet points. We've seen how attacking he is. We've seen his positioning in the FA Cup, in the FA. Why do I keep saying FA Cup? FA Community Shield game as well. So again, whether that's gonna continue or be consistent for a good amount of time, maybe not. But yeah, I mean, still feel that Robertson is the better option to go for. Is a weak bench the best strategy, or is it better to spend? I mean, it's okay to not have a very heavy bench early on. But yeah, I mean, if even if you're targeting cheap players or cheap options on your bench, I think you still need to look out for those starting options, because I feel Nico Williams and Pereira, I think I at least I feel in the beginning they're going to be starters for their teams. I think Williams is also quite attacking, so I mean, if you're lucky, you might even get some good bench points from Williams. Pereira also looks like a player who's probably going to start early on for Fulham, so I think it's better to go for cheaper options in the beginning, but go for those options who actually will get minutes, so that at least you get, even if they blank or even if they don't do anything, they at least get those appearance points, which I think could come in handy in case if somebody from your team doesn't start. But yeah, not investing a lot of money is probably the right way to do it, at least early on in the season. Would you consider Perisic to a Trippier, Zinchenko? I personally don't think so, because I feel that if Perisic starts, I know there's a big if there, but I think if he starts, he's way superior than anyone from this whole bunch, right? You have Trippier, Zinchenko, you have the Aston Villa defenders, you have defenders from Arsenal as well for 5 million. Gabriel is the option there. Walker as well. I just feel Perisic is way more attacking. I mean, what he can do to the opposition defense, what he can do for Tottenham, I think that's really a lot of value. Really, I mean, he could really change that game for Tottenham as well, right? So I don't think so that downgrade makes a lot more sense just to keep that point 0.5 in the bank. Though I understand why would you want to keep that extra money, considering that you probably would want to make some additional changes, which will require you to have some additional money, and the price rises as well. So from that perspective, it makes sense. But I just feel that downgrade is not worth considering it. At least in my head, it's probably not worth considering. Thoughts on triple for Arsenal forwards, Jesus, Saka, Martinelli? I still feel again, it's like, again, you're putting a lot of eggs in one basket, right? You would probably want to double up on the attackers and not have uh, all three of them, because if one game Arsenal blank, I think this team is probably going to get hurt a lot, right? Jesus and Saka have looked really, really strong in preseason. They're scoring goals for fun. Martinelli is more of the assister and more of the creative threat, though we know that he can still score goals. But if you want to save money, go Jesus and Martinelli. If you're okay, if you have that 8 million midfield spot open, and if you are maybe not convinced with the Mount, maybe you have Robertson instead of Diaz, and you still want to have that 8 million option open, then I think Saka is a good option to go for. Son, Rashford, Neto, Diaz, Pereira. Son, Rashford, Neto, Diaz. I mean, I like Son and I want to have him, but of course we can't have all the players in our FPL teams. Um, Rashford, I'm still not very convinced. Neto, Diaz, Pereira are options that are there. I'm okay with the Diaz, but yeah, I still feel having not having Salah is a huge miss. I think that he's going to do really well. His ownership is also going to be very, very high. A lot of people are going to captain him. So, I mean, high chances that, you'll probably lose out a lot, or a lot of points would be lost if you don't have Salah in your team. Guys, do let me know if yeah, do let me know if you can hear me, see me. I think there was some connection or some issue with the stream. Are you guys able to hear me, see me? I think I lost you guys for a second there. But yeah, so yeah, I was just saying that this combination looks a lot better. The combination that I have looks a lot better. Not having Salah, I think it's gonna be a little bit disturbing, especially when he returns and he does really well, and that loss is gonna be massive, right? So I'll probably not take a chance and not have Salah. But yeah, picks like Neto, Diaz, Pereira are still fine. Rashford is also somebody that I'm not still very, very confident on. Why haven't you brought in Ward yet? I will, in fact, instead of Steel, I will get in Ward. Uh, haven't done the transfer yet, but I think that will be an option. Almiron over Bailey, please reply. I think Almiron has had a great preseason. Bailey has also had a decent preseason. I just feel Bailey looks like the more, naturally more attacking player, naturally more flair pick. Almiron, I mean, Newcastle would be strong defensively. Now, whether they could replicate or whether they could be as attacking as they were last season, maybe even better it. I mean, I'm still in two minds about it, though he's had a great preseason. I just feel there are options that could take those attacking threats or those attacking returns away from Almiron, at least in the league. I mean, it's not going to be very, very. It's not a very obvious answer, or it's not a very easy answer. I think both of them are risky picks, to be very honest. I mean, you really can't say that one is far superior than the other one. But whatever I've seen from preseason, whatever in terms of both teams as well, I think Aston Villa is probably going to be a lot more attacking than somebody like a Newcastle, for example. I think Newcastle is going to keep it tight at the back. We know how Gerrard plays. We know how he focuses on attacking, on his attacking players, on scoring goals and outscoring the opposition. I think that's going to continue with Aston Villa this season as well. So all of these things, the way Gerrard thinks, the way he plays, I think it just makes me feel that Bailey is a slightly better pick at the moment. I might be totally wrong after game week one, but I think for now, going Bailey is probably the route to go. But even if you go Almiron, I mean, my answer would probably be Bailey. But even if you go Almiron, I don't think there's a lot to choose or a lot to differentiate between in terms of both picks. So I think yeah, if you feel that Almiron would do well, I really like Bruno Gimenez as well. I think that is where I'm kind of toyed between going for him or Almiron. Of course, Almiron is a lot cheaper than something like a Gimenez, for example. But yeah, maybe it changes. I still don't feel that I'll probably change away from Bailey unless we know that Bailey's probably not going to start in game week one. Martial or Tony, I would probably avoid both, to be very honest. I think Martial's playtime or his minutes on the pitch really depends on what happens to Ronaldo. If Ronaldo's staying, I think his minutes significantly reduce. Um, so I'm definitely not very convinced with Martial. Tony as well. I mean, you can go for Tony, but you can probably even, let's say, if you are going for this, if this is your third option, I'll probably save that money, invest that additional money maybe in defense or midfield. Or the other options, probably if I don't have a Jesus, for example, in my team, I'll probably try to go towards a Jesus than have Tony. I'll probably avoid both options at the moment. Captain Kane at home versus Southampton or Salah away. I mean, it's not a very difficult choice because both fixtures are really good. I think Kane is going to do well against Southampton. He has a good record as well. Kane has also looked really, really good in preseason. But if you're playing safe, then you have to go Salah because, as I said earlier, his effective ownership is going to be massively high, and there are chances that he returns, and that loss is going to be humongous, right? So this is not one of those weeks maybe you where you take a chance, take that risk. I think it's pretty clear cut, at least in game week one, that you go Salah. I still don't feel that you need to experiment a lot just in game week one. I think start slowly, start safely, be in that hunt, or whatever ranks or whatever objectives you have, at least be closer to that, so that I mean, there are chances that you won't get demotivated, or you won't make silly moves, or a lot of moves to get in the best players that you want. So I feel it's a big differential. So if you're just playing for fun, if you just want to have some fun, see what happens, only then I would say that Captain Kane. Otherwise, I mean, there's not a conversation, at least for game week one. What do you think? Ramsdale, Trent, Robbo, Cancelo, Walker, Salah, Foden, Martinelli, Almiron. I like the team. It's actually a very good team. I mean, a lot of people are expecting Foden to start game week one, and I think that could be. It could go either way. I also think that he probably starts, but yeah, I mean, it could be tricky. So that's probably the only concern that I have with this team. I think Almiron is definitely a starter, so he's going to give you minutes. So that's not a problem there. I think Walker as well is pretty much safe, at least in game week one, maybe even two, till the time there's no signing or no new player coming in. Foden's probably the only one that I will be a little bit wary about. There's a huge risk involved with Foden because if he gets limited minutes, he might blank. He might come from the bench. It's going to be a tricky fixture as well for Man City. So if you want to start safer, maybe you go with somebody like a Saka, for example. Considering that you already have Martinelli and Jesus and Ramsdale, of course, you won't be able to pick three Arsenal players. But in that case, you go with somebody like a Mount. I think that's a safer option to go for. If you're okay taking a bit of a risk, then Foden is not a bad pick, but it has to come with a lot of risk. Captain Kane or Son. If I have to choose between the two, I'll probably Captain Kane. But if I have Salah, I think I will definitely Captain Salah. Thoughts on Undav? I like him as a pick. I like him as an FPL pick. It's still it's still very early to see or say that I mean, he's gonna start most games or start all games, but I think there are high chances that he becomes that number one striker for Brighton. I think in that scenario, I think he could still come under consideration. Maybe not at the start, at least. Have you consciously only picked on players who's new to the league? Um, what I mean, I haven't really picked any players who are new to the league. Is this the Premier League or is this some other league you're talking about? Anyways, your announcements. Yeah, announcements, guys. So yeah, there were a couple of things that I wanted to. I'll come to the questions just in a moment. But there are a couple of things that I wanted to just kind of put out there and announce in terms of what we are doing. So there are three things, in fact, I want to talk about. The first thing is, like last season, we'll also be doing a league, which is I'm sure a lot of you are already a part of that league right now. If you're not a part of the league, there's a league code on the screen. You can join our Insanely Football League. There'll be some prizes. There'll be some giveaways to the top three managers out there. I'm also trying to kind of figure out a format if we can make things a bit interesting. But definitely there'll be some giveaways. There'll be some prizes, for the league winners like last season, and there would be some maybe a different set of competition that we'll be running. That's number one, which was okay, which is as what happened last season as well. Number two is that we're starting our Insanely Football blog. We're also starting a blog called insanelyfootball.com, and there we'll be having consistent blogs every game week. Of course, we're going to start with small. We're going to see how it kind of functions, how it kind of runs, but there'll be consistent articles along with your YouTube videos, along with whatever we do on Instagram. That will be happening every week. So in case if you are interested to get more idea, get more knowledge, get a deeper understanding, maybe sometimes a lot of you are not able to get that insight in terms of certain decisions to take, certain transfers to make, maybe something regarding captaincy. It'll be a lot more detailed in terms of what we've been doing so far. So that's gonna happen. That's gonna happen every week, and of course we will be doing that for 38 weeks. So feel free to give your comments. Feel free to add anything that you want or want to see at least on the channel or at least on the blog. That'll be really really interesting and exciting. That's number two. I think the number three thing is probably the most interesting thing, or something that I'm really really excited about. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So this season, what we're trying to do, we're trying to add something new, a different masala, different flavor to FPL. So what we'll be doing, we'll be starting, or I'll be starting an FPL podcast with Mrs. Insanely Football. And for those of you who don't know who she is, she's my wife, and she's been doing a lot of behind the scenes work. So all these lovely graphics, all these lovely creatives, whatever you see on the screen is all done by her. She's been contributing to the channel, silently for almost a year and a half, 2 years now. So we thought that we'll probably, make things a bit interesting. Maybe make her, get more involved in football. She's been following football since quite some time now. She's also an FPL player, but she's been playing it a bit casually. I think this season is probably going to change or not going to change. I don't know, but I think it's going to be really interesting because I'm a big football fan. I'm an expert. I probably am not an expert, but at least I have some idea in terms of what happens in football. She's probably gonna bring a very fresh perspective in terms of what's gonna happen in FPL. What is she thinking? So I know a lot of casual people. I know a lot of people who just play for fun, right? I think it'll be very interesting to kind of get her insights and get an understanding of how she thinks or how a casual FPL player thinks. And I think it'll be very interesting. There'll be a lot of banter, and I just hope I'll probably go easy on her for a couple of weeks, until she's kind of settles in. But I think it's going to be very, very interesting. I think it's going to be a casual. We'll try to keep it short. We won't. It's not going to be a very serious sport. So I'll probably, it's probably a disclaimer to a lot of people who are looking at a very, very serious sport, who are talking about data, a lot of analytics and all that stuff. I think it's going to be a very, normal conversation where we just chat football, where we chat about our game weeks, where we talk about what's going to happen in next week, and we'll take it from there. So we're trying this as an experiment, and we'll see where it goes. And of course, if you guys like it, I think feel free to add, or feel free to comment, or feel free to give us any feedback, anything that you would want to see, anything new that you would want us to add on the channel. I think that'll be really really interesting. So yeah, so that's the plan. I think these are the three things that I wanted to kind of bring, get out there in terms of what's gonna happen. I think it's more and more that we're trying to get into football, get into FPL, help you guys as well, and grow us, all of us together as well. I think it's going to be interesting. It's a very important, a big year for us, and help us, support us in any way that you can. And I think that'll be your help, and your love is always very very appreciated. Great. We'll get back to football. We will start the questions again. Five best defenders in order. Five best 5 million defenders in order. I think if I'm looking at 5 million defenders, it's probably gonna be. I like Trippier, to be very honest. I mean, he's a good pick. I'm not a huge fan of the Arsenal defenders per se, but if I'm looking at 5 million options, I think Trippier is right up there. I think he's a great option to go for. If you are looking at other options as well, I think Walker as well. He's gonna get a lot of starts, maybe early on. So I think he could be. Maybe he's not as attacking as Cancelo as we've seen in the past, but I think it's probably gonna be a good pick. So I'll probably say. In terms of over, if you're looking at a very short term pick or a short term window, I think Walker probably even is a slightly better option than Trippier with a slightly less goal threat, but I think he could cover that off with clean sheets. I'm not a huge fan of all the defenders from Aston Villa, so I'll probably rate them a little lower than the other options. Um, yeah, not really a lot there, to be very honest. I mean, I could go. I no, yeah, I'll probably just stick to these options, to be very honest. And I think if you want cheaper options, I think there could be more there as well. I mean, 4.5, the window really kind of opens up, but I think 5 million, I would, if you're not very confident, or if you're not going for Walker etc., I think you probably shift, or come down to a 4.5, save that additional point 0.5, and then have that in the bank just in case. Unda, or any other 5.5 forwards that you could get points? I mean, don't really see a lot of options in terms of forwards, right? I mean, I'm assuming this will be the third striker option, and I don't see a lot of options out there who could be, who could be potential point scorer. I mean, you have the likes of Edward Mateta, some maybe somebody who's a Crystal Palace attacker and who's probably a nailed attacker, which initially might be a bit tricky. I think Undav is definitely an option that we'll probably have to look at. I think he could be an option that who could give us decent FPL points. Archer, I'm still not sure whether he's gonna get starts, but yeah, I mean he's played in preseason, he's looked decent. Uh, so yeah, personally don't like that 5.5 million striker spot. I think it's always better to probably invest a little bit more, get a slightly premium, if not a very expensive defender, and then take advantage of those FPL points because it's a slightly better strategy to go towards. Um, any Zinchenko replacement instead of Walker and Trippier, I'll probably come down to 4.5, and I'll go with maybe Dunk. I think I really like Dunk. I also thought that Tomiyasu could be an option, but I think Ben White, among the two, Ben White looks like the one who starts. But I would probably not want to go for an Arsenal defender. Would you consider Martial if Ronaldo left? I think I would. If Martial, if Ronaldo leaves, I think Martial could be a decent option to go for. Diaz or Saka, I like Saka more. If you already have Martinelli and Jesus, I think then it's Diaz. But if you're maybe going towards a Robertson as your third Liverpool pick, or maybe you don't have a third Liverpool pick, I think Saka is still a good option to go for. Best 4.5 million defender. We did a post on a 4.5 million defense and defender. So if you want to check that out, I think that'll be a much more detailed post on Instagram. You can follow us on Instagram at Insanely Football, so you'll probably find it there. But I think in terms of 4.5 million options, you have Lewis Dunk, who is known to be attacking for Brighton, who is good from set pieces. I think he's gonna start, most games, and I think he could be a very good option to go for. Other than that, if you're looking at other options, you have the Arsenal options, maybe not that great. You have options from Palace as well, but again, I'm not a huge fan of the Palace defense, especially because considering the early fixtures are a little tough. I think it's maybe better to avoid them. Of course, if you're going very cheap, then Nico Williams, somebody like a Patterson, makes a lot more sense. Diego Dallo could be really good, but I think I'm still waiting on the United defense and kind of seeing what happens with them. I think Botman, if you can't afford a Trippier, for example, I think Botman at 4.5 million could also be a decent option. There are some doubts in terms of whether he can get regular minutes. Maybe he gets that towards when we have a couple of game weeks gone by. But I think that could be a decent option as well at 4.5 million option. Other than that, there's a huge debate in terms of whether to go for 8 Nuri or Johnny, but I like 8 Nuri, to be very honest, but I think it still could get a bit tricky because we don't know who's going to start there first. I mean, Johnny's more versatile. He can play on both sides. When Semedo returns, I think it could be Johnny and Semedo, and that would mean that 8 Nuri is not getting regular game time. So that really puts me off. It's a bit risky. I mean, they're good options and they're both attacking. They could get clean sheets because Wolves have a good run of fixtures, but I think it comes with its own set of risk. So in that regard, I think going for somebody like Diego Dallo, for example, I think that could be a decent option to go for. Leicester again, I will probably avoid Leicester defenders at 4.5 right now. I mean, somebody like a Fofana, maybe a Justin could become options, but I think right now it becomes a bit tricky. Yeah. We've got two trends. What does that mean? Maybe I missed that message. Um, is on a good option instead of Salah? I mean, he's a good option, but not instead of Salah. It's tricky to get both Son and Salah in the same team, and because you'll probably have to sacrifice on a Kane or on a Haaland. But yeah, uh, I mean, I know a lot of people I mean, I'm trying to get Son and I'm not able to get Son, but I still don't feel that he's a better option than Salah. Again, could be wrong, but at least initially not there. Is Matip nailed? He has a good. I mean, he. I think he should be. I think Konate is injured. Um, and I don't think so. I mean, Matip had a really, really good season last season. I mean, he was pretty strong as well. Yeah, I mean, I think so. He should be first choice in that Liverpool lineup. Almiron only made 19 starts. I mean, yes, last season was 19 starts. He's also been injured quite a lot of times, but he's had a good preseason. And I think every year, the thing changes. I mean, same with Leon Bailey as well, right? He was injured last season. Now he's playing really well in preseason. There are chances that he can retain that spot or can get that spot in the 11. So yeah, why not? I mean, Almiron could be okay. Why are there weird bots in the chat? I did, yeah, I kind of figured that out later, but yeah, I don't think so. They're there anymore, but yeah. So on to KDB on Game Week 2 opinion. Like KDB, I think not a lot of people are gonna go for KDB considering the price point. But again, if this is all coming at a cost of not having Salah in the team, I think it's gonna be a bit tricky because I still feel having Salah is really really important. I mean, difficult to not have Salah and then sleep at night, especially during game weeks or deadlines. So yeah, Ramsdale, Robbo, Trent, Dallo, Cancelo, Mount, Martinelli, Salah, Neto, Haaland, Jesus. Thoughts? Like the double up with Robertson, Trent, Dallo is a decent option. I mean, I'm not very against Diego Dallo, to be very honest. I know not a lot of people are considering him. Uh, but if we have a doubt, for example, maybe go for a Dunk. Uh, I'm quite bullish on Lewis Dunk doing well this season. I was on Tomiyasu too, but I don't think so. He's gonna start, and I don't think so. White has enough goal threat to warrant that position because I think every position is important. From an FPL perspective in your FPL team. So I don't think so. Dallo is that bad. You're a very underrated FPL content creator. Thank you so much. I mean, I hope we grow. I hope we grow a lot this season. And yeah, we're doing a lot of things. We're having some fun this season. I think last season, I think there was a point of time where I was kind of lost into getting that 10K, that 20K. Of course, there was some competition in mini leagues as well, where a certain player won after a long time in the league. But yeah, I mean, yeah. So I probably thought that last season was a bit serious in terms of whatever was happening. But I think it's this year. Of course, we're gonna grow. We're gonna have a lot of fun, and we'll keep trying and keep doing different things which keep you guys engaged. And yeah, we'll see what happens from there. Yeah, I'm looking forward as well, Savio. I mean, a little bit nervous in terms of starting all of that stuff because, of course, it's a huge commitment to start all these things. But yeah, I hope that we are able to do a justice or a fair amount of stuff there. It'd be glad if we girls can beat you boys at FP. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of women. I mean, of course, it's growing every year, but yeah, there are a lot of women who do really well at FPL. And of course, it involves a certain level of commitment, certain level of, I won't even say knowledge, but yeah, certain understanding of the game, which you can even pick by watching the game, by watching highlights and all that stuff. There's a lot of content that is out there, so you can follow all that content. You can read up on articles. You can do a lot of stuff which will help you in your FPL season, and it'll be great. I mean, you know, uh, a lot of women are also a part of our mini leagues. So yeah, I mean the competition, men, women doesn't matter. The competition's really on. So yeah, we'll see. Oh, uh, yeah. Let's see. I mean, we'll see if we can get Mrs. Ainley football on maybe a stream or something. We'll figure something out this season. But yeah, I mean, definitely something would happen or should happen in that regard. Can you rate my team? Uh, Possible to share your team? We will definitely rate it. Just share your team if you've not shared that earlier. Maybe I've missed it out. No, just share that team again and we'll see. Rate my team: goalkeeper Sanchez, Ward, Walker, Trippier, Dallo, Nico, Patterson, Sterling, Fernandez. Oh my God, there's a lot of. Oh, so you've gone for Kane, Haaland, and Jesus. That's why I was wondering why the defense looks a bit lighter. I mean, Kane, Haaland, Jesus looks like a really, really good combination, but I just feel it kind of disturbs the balance of the overall team because when you look at options, Walker, I still feel Walker cannot cover up or cover off Cancelo. Trippier, Dallo, Nico Williams. You're playing with two, or at least you'll be playing if let's say you're playing a 3-4-3, then you have Walker, Trippier, Dallo as your three. Among your mids, you have Sterling, Fernandez, Diaz, Neto, Pereira. Would I'm assuming would be on the bench. I mean, it's not a bad team, but yeah, considering that you don't have players like Trent, um, considering that you don't have Cancelo, Robertson's not that highly owned, so he's probably not going to hurt you that much. But I think it could be a bit risky to go so differential at least early on in the season. Maybe once you've kind of settled into a rhythm and maybe you have those picks, you have those differentials that you feel that are going to do well. Yeah, I mean maybe you go towards those picks at that point of time. But I just feel I mean going against a template in game week one is a huge risk. If the template fails, you probably would end up doing well. But if the template does really well, and when I say template, it's basically the highest owned picks of that particular week or in totality, in fact. So yeah. Thank you so much for those kind words, guy. I hope you do well in our mini league as well, guys. If you have not joined the league, I think most of you would have joined or would be a part of it already. But if you've not, the league code is on the screen, so you can probably join the league. Do you know the guy who got number one last season? I don't personally know him, but I followed him on Twitter. I did reach out to him, but yeah, I did speak to him once. But yeah, I mean, in general, not really spoken to him a lot, or uh, yeah, not really had a lot of conversation with him. Coming for you again, I mean, we'll see. It's a long season. I think it's going to be an interesting one, especially with the World Cup coming in. I think with that additional wild card as well, I think it's going to be interesting. Also coming for number one. Let's see. Bring it on, guys. I'm leaning towards to a not fully weak bench draft. I have Raya Zinchenko, and I'm okay. See, by till the time you have at least one option who's a playing option you're very confident of on the bench, you don't really have to spend a lot of money on the bench because more often than not, you're probably not gonna reach to that third spot or that even that second spot on your bench, right? So till the time you have somebody who's probably nailed in terms of minutes, I don't think so. You need to invest a lot in that second or the third spot. How do I share my team and where? I mean, you can share your team here. Forum, you can share your team here. I think you already did, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. So in general, what early thoughts about your team were that it's probably easier to go a little template, a little. It's probably easier to go with certain players or with players who are owned by a lot of other people. I mean, it's not really bad at all, to be very honest. Um, the upside is, or the good side of that, or the good part of that is that you probably won't be losing out a lot because if certain players who are very heavily owned or highly owned by a lot of players, if they don't perform, then you're not really losing out a lot. But if you are looking at options which are, of course, they could be attacking, they could do well, but if they are not really uh, if they don't really do well, I think, and the other options do well, then you're probably going to lose out on a lot of points. So I mean, go with a draft which you feel, of course, is the best one to go for. But yeah, just have a few differentials in there. Maybe when I say differentials, it's basically people, players who have less ownership, maybe less than 5% ownership, right? Uh, so maybe have a couple of them in your team and have a slightly safer team overall. Ramsdale, Trent, Cash, Cancelo, Trippier, Salah. You have Bailey, Saka, Christopher. You have Mount, Kane as vice captain, Jesus and Ward, Nico Williams, Pereira, Arch on the bench. It's a good team. Cash and Trippier are, I think, I mean, there is a scope of maybe going with somebody like like a James, for example. Uh, but yeah, you'll probably have to downgrade a Saka to a Martinelli. I think it's worth that downgrade. But if you think that maybe Saka is definitely gonna be a lot better than Martinelli, and Cash is okay for the first few game weeks, you have a plan for Cash, then I think it's a pretty sorted team. You don't really have to change. But yeah, if I was you, I'll probably change Cash to me one of Cash or Trippier at least to a James, and then maybe downgrade Saka to a Martinelli. Considering that you have Jesus, I think Jesus is going to be Arsenal's number one attacker, so I think it's okay. Thoughts on going five at the back, but not having an 8 million midfielder? I think it's okay. You don't 8 million just gives you a little bit flexibility in terms of going for that spot or going for multiple players who could be okay for their teams, but it's not an absolute must. If you are maybe doubling up on Arsenal, not Arsenal, maybe if you're doubling up on, on Liverpool with Trent and Robertson, you have James, you have Cancelo, and you have a Perisic, for example. That's absolutely okay as well. I think there are high chances, and again, totally depends on which player you're going for at the back, right? If you go for somebody like a Diaz, for example, he might not be better than somebody, maybe a Foden, for example, who could be a much better pick from the same team, right? So you don't want to lock yourself having a certain pick or having a particular player where you maybe don't want him after a few weeks, and then you'll have to do a lot of shifting and changing, right? So keep your options open. I think if you're looking at City, etc., I don't think so it's worth, I personally feel it's not worth doubling up, because if I want Haaland and a second City attacker, I in that case Walker just kind of blocks me off, especially when I already have Cancelo in my team. So you have two teams this season. The second is in a mini league with friends, with the rule of no players above 10. I mean, that could be really fun. That could actually be really fun. But yeah, in the main team, it's in the main league in the team. I think it's a bit tricky to make. But yeah, I mean, if you guys have some interesting ideas about what we could do, of course we can start that this week, maybe next week as well. That's not a problem. But yeah, I mean, not sounds like a very interesting idea. You don't want Trent, Cancelo, Robo, Salah, anyone else is okay. So I took. I mean, if you, that's absolutely fine. If you depends on how, or what are the ultimate objectives or intention of playing this game. If you just want to have some fun, go with certain players. Go with your gut, whosoever you feel. If you're a United fan and if you want to have that bias, that's fine till the time you don't want to play this game very seriously and you're very worried about your rank every week or week on week. Because if that's the objective, then I think the approach should probably change a little bit. Yeah, as Shan is saying, right? It's all about having fun at FPL, and whatever makes you happy, whatever, if FPL is not troubling you at night and not troubling you sleep, right? Till the time it's absolutely fine. Somehow hate Liverpool. I mean, yeah, hate is a strong word, but yeah, I mean, a lot of people dislike Liverpool, irrespective of whatever they've been doing, etc. But yeah, let's see. I think it's going to be an interesting season because we're also in the hunt. I mean, of course, we're not in the hunt to win the title or anything, but I think it'll be very interesting to see how Ten Hag, gets the team rolling, gets the season underway. We've not really had a great window by any stretch of the imagination, but I mean, yeah, it still could be very interesting. Still could be a couple of more players coming in. So Maris, Foden, or Mount for the first 2 3 weeks. I think Mount if you want to go safer. If you're okay taking a slight risk, I'll probably say Foden ahead of Mares and Grealish. Grealish helps you save that 1 million, but I don't think so. It's worth saving in this particular case. I think Foden is probably gonna get more minutes. But yeah, I mean it's very risky. I mean, at the end of the day, what Pep does only he knows, right? So we don't know what he's gonna do. So because of that fact, I think it's okay to probably see it out for a couple of weeks and then just go Mount. If Mount is not working out, you know you shift to a City mid who really have great fixtures after the first few weeks. I feel for James because I mean yeah, Chelsea are looking for a new right. I know. there's a high chance that he could play as the right side centre back for Chelsea, and you're not absolutely wrong there. And there is a bit of a risk involved there. So if you are a bit concerned, I still feel in terms of attacking threat, if he plays as a right wing back, right? I mean, he's way ahead of anyone. When we compare him to, let's say, like a Cash or maybe even a Trippier. Trippier maybe not, or maybe because Trippier has a different skill set, and his attacking threat comes from set pieces, etc. as well. So there could be some differentiation there. But yeah, I mean, I understand the risk or the concern of why you don't want to go for a James, and that's kind of the reason I also don't have him. Maybe go Perisic as well. I mean, Perisic, I also know that Perisic is also a bit risky because there could be some minutes, there could be some rotation, but if he's fine, if he's fit, I think he's going to start most games. Maybe he comes off a lot earlier than people might expect him to play or be at the pitch. But yeah, uh, there still are options there. As a Chelsea fan, I don't like Spurs at all, but I mean, you have been bullish on Kulusevski since the start of the stream. Let's see if you still have him before the game week deadline, because we will be having another deadline stream, or the deadline stream before the deadline. I think it's going to be a long one. Another idea for a fun league: not no picking up top five most owned players in each position, or no picking up top five premiums in each position. I mean, that's again very very interesting. Yeah, let's figure out something that we can probably do. If you guys don't mind, just share these ideas as a DM. Maybe you can just reach out to me on Instagram. Maybe just post this message there as well. Though I'll pick up these at least, and we can definitely start something. I mean, we can maybe try out something and let's see what's the response, and then we can probably take it forward. Ramsdale, Trent, Cancelo, James, Trippier, Salah, Diaz, Trossard, Neto, Kane, Jesus. I think, like the overall team, just Trossard is probably the only one I'm not very very confident on. There are high chance that I mean, I saw in a preseason friendly, I'm forgetting which team, against which team was it, but he did play, he almost played as a wing back, right? And I would not want my midfielder or my forward to play in that sort of a deeper role. And considering that he's 6.5, I'll probably save that money. uh and I don't mind even going for a Martinelli as well, right? Because you have Diaz as a rate million option, which is absolutely fine. I still prefer Robertson over Diaz, but I mean, I don't hate the combination of Diaz and Diaz Trent as your two Liverpool players along with Salah. But I think Martinelli still looks like the better option to go for. That also will give you 0.5 million in the bank, which you can save, and you can probably use it later, especially when the price rises come into play, and if at all you want to make a couple of moves and you require some extra money. So what do you think about Reece James? I think he's gonna start for sure. Now, whether he starts as a right wing back or a right centre back, I think I'd still feel it's a bit it's a bit risky. But he has attacking threat in him. Of course, he trolled a lot of FPL players, a lot of managers last season. I got trolled. I'm sure you would have also got trolled by his performances, or him as an FPL pick. I really hope that doesn't happen this year, but yeah, I think I still feel he's a good pick. Was still worried about his position and the overall Chelsea defense, to be very honest. I mean, they've looked shaky in preseason, and whatever comments Tuchel has said out loud in the media, I mean, it's not very promising, to be very honest. A lot could change. Maybe things change from game week one itself. But yeah, I mean, slightly not worried about his minutes, but yeah, slightly worried about his position and Chelsea's clean sheet potential early on. As a Chelsea fan, I don't think so. James is gonna play right center back. I mean, yeah, if we keep Aspilicueta and Ser Alonso, Aspi Koulibaly, Chalobah. I mean, yeah, there are options there. So I think James is definitely not somebody who's probably gonna last 90 minutes for the whole season, right? So yeah, let's see. Still don't think. I also don't feel that he's probably gonna play right center back, but I mean, there is still a slight, tiny possibility there. Trossard, good fixtures. I mean, I know he has had decent fixtures, but I don't rate him very highly as a as an FPL pick, though he still got 141 points last season, which was not at all, low or less by any stretch of the imagination. But I just feel there are better options to go for. What we did in our league was after 32 game weeks, we took the top 16 and created, oh, around 30. I mean, that also could be done in, I mean, I think the head to head, yeah, I mean, the head to head is actually something like that only. But yeah, I mean, from the same league as well, we can do something similar. I mean, yeah, Fergie did change Man United. Of course, we've been struggling since a long time. There's no hiding from that fact. I have a suggestion for you: remove Saka from Martinelli and upgrade Bailey to Grealish with that 2 million. I mean, yeah, Saka, Martinelli both can score, but I still feel Saka is the more explosive pick, especially when it comes to goal scoring and goal threat. I still feel that I'm not sure whether he's going to be on pens or not, because whatever I've seen so far, or whatever I've read, or consumed any kind of content, it looks like us, at least Arsenal is not very. It's not very certain in terms of who's going to be on pens. It could be. It could be the player who takes it. It could be Saka. It could be Jesus. But if it's Gabriel Jesus, I think then the conversation becomes a little bit easier. If it's Saka, then I think it becomes a bit tricky, because that penalty, having penalties is a big, massive advantage. So I'm also thinking of something like that. But I'm again going for a City mid this early on. Which one to go for? Still not very sure there. I mean, I understand the idea and I understand the thought behind it, but this move is basically maybe a couple of weeks down the line. Alisson over Neto is a good risk. Maybe not in the beginning. Again, so teams like Leeds, teams like, you know, maybe even a Brighton, for example, I would want to see them out for a few weeks, understand how they're playing, what they're doing, and then kind of take a call. So I'll probably just stick with Neto, at least early on. I mean, high chances penalties are taken. At least in the last 5-6 penalties have been taken by people who have uh, secured or got that penalty. So still not very sure who takes it. Could be Saka, could be Jesus. Great, Savio. Thank you so much for joining, Savio. Yeah, we will definitely do the alternate league. Let me just come back with some ideas of my own and see what we can do. But I think thank you for the suggestions. I think they were really, really nice. Bailey's too short for a Premier League. I mean, yeah, can't say he's. I mean, could be nailed as well. I just feel that if he has a breakout season, and he could be one of those people who has a breakout season in FPL or in Premier League this season. Almiron is definitely nailed. I also feel that he's nailed. But yeah, I mean Bailey is a bit risky, because a couple of games Bailey doesn't really perform, and I think he goes out of the 11, and there is competition there. So I don't think so Gerard would have that much patience with somebody like a Bailey. But yeah, I mean Almiron could be the better pick to go for. Personal hunch and personal gut is saying it's Bailey right now, but yeah, I mean still a couple of days before the deadline that could change. Great, guys. It's been a couple of hours since we've been streaming. We started at 10, I think. So I think we'll probably, call it a night here. I mean, have to, catch up on other stuff as well. Of course, have to prepare a lot of other things that, we've spoken about today. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much, all of you. If you've not subscribed, like the stream, hit that like button. It helps us with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe to the channel as well. There'll be a lot of content coming up. There'll be a lot of stuff coming up. I'll keep you guys posted in terms of whatever's happening. So do check out our Insta stories. We will be posting a lot of stories, a lot of updates, and there'll be a lot of content coming up as well. So do follow us on Insta as well. In case if you're interested in threads, etc., we've been doing a few threads on Twitter as well. So you can go check out our Twitter handle. It's @insanelyfooty. Thank you so much again. We'll be back with a deadline stream. There will be the team selection video coming on Thursday. There will be a tips video, or a final final thoughts or final tips video on Friday morning as well. And then we'll have the Friday deadline stream, which I think will be at least a couple of hours before the deadline. Maybe it's even a longer stream, so we'll see. But yeah, we'll be back for the deadline stream for the entire season. But yeah, first for game week 1, and then we'll see, we go on from there. Great, thank you so much. I think, yeah, there's a lot of value in midfield. Bailey, Neto, Podence, a lot of good options. I think it's going to be interesting. Thank you so much again for joining. And thank you for all the comments that you've shared, all the love that you've shared. I hope I've been able to address some ideas, some thoughts, some doubts, etc. I think a lot more will come in the season, but we'll be there. We'll be helping you out. We'll stay connected, Forum, for sure. We'll stay connected. See you soon, Shan. Hopefully you will also join us in the next stream. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye bye.